Let me begin with a few questions. Before you took your first breath, before you opened your eyes for the very first time, did you get to choose the circumstances you would be born into? Did you get to pick your family? Did you get to pick your neighborhood? The schools you would attend, the opportunities that you would have, or the challenges that you would face? No, of course not. And what about children today? Do they get to pick the circumstances that they are born into? No, of course not. If I would have had the opportunity to pick my life package, I would have picked the package that included a cool cereal box that included a toy as a prize instead of the extra crunchy welfare cereal bag. No child chooses to be born into poverty, nor do they choose to be born into a family whose only focus is survival. In 2022 through 2023, the Food Research and Action Center noted that 28 million children were enrolled in the National School Lunch Program, meaning that their families were considered low income. 28 million children. No one gets to pick the circumstances that they are born into, but we all get to choose how we act to make this world a better place. Especially our educators, the shapers of the next generation, the ones who pour into our children to develop their hearts and mind. My name is Marcela Andrés, and it is my testimony, it is my life purpose, it is my research, and it is my practice that when schools, families, and educators work together in coordinated, humanity-centered ways, the wildest dreams of children will be unleashed. I have been a school teacher, a district administrator, and now I am a trained practitioner that gets the opportunity and honor to work with schools, communities, and districts across our country to focus on the power of relationships. Now, I told you it was my testimony, so I'm going to give you 5 principles that I can stand on this stage today that tells you how a child can go from poverty to prosperity. But before that, let me tell you a story. It was Christmas Eve, and there was a knock at our front door. And I run to the door, and I open it. And to my disappointment, but great surprise, Mrs. Tavasoli was standing there with bags full of gifts with other teachers. And she said, "Merry Christmas. And is your mom home?" As I turn around to look for my mom, she's standing right behind me with her face filled with gratitude and her eyes welled up with tears. You see, in recent conversations, Mrs. Tavasoli had learned that not only was my mom a single mom, but that our small apartment had been broken into and things had been stolen and money that she was saving up for Christmas had been taken. One of the gifts that Mrs. Tavasoli and the teachers brought me was a green Coleman camping bag. I had never gone camping. I thought it was such a fun gift. When we returned back from Christmas vacation, I thanked Mrs. Tavasoli for the gift that she had given me. And of course, she said that I was very welcome. As the year progressed, Mrs. Tavasoli would make it a point to share with me that she cared with her daily interactions, asking me how I was doing, what I was learning in school, if I was being good, and how my mother was doing. Mrs. Tavasoli made it a point to make me feel seen despite my circumstances. As a matter of fact, she made me feel so seen that one day there was a school festival and there was an opportunity to sing a song, a lip sync a mariachi song on the stage. And she said, "Marcela, I think that you would be great. You should sing on that stage." And I said, "Mrs. Tavasoli, I can't do it." "You can't do it? You just got lip sync." And I said, "I can't do it. I'm nervous. But the reality is that I was about 10 years old, and I was coming to my consciousness of understanding my life circumstances. I am a daughter of immigrants. I was labeled English language learner, and I was considered low socioeconomic status, coming from a single-parent household. I felt ashamed, I felt overwhelmed, and I did not feel deserving to take that stage. But she looked at me, and she said to me that I could do anything that I put my mind to. And she said that whenever I wanted something, that I had to just work so hard for it and that I would be able to accomplish it. And she told me, never give up. The relationship that Mrs. Tavasili had with me redefined my educational trajectory. Educators have the power of breaking the box and ending generational poverty. And I can testify that that is what Mrs. Tavasili did for me. Now, thank you for listening to that short story. I have these 5 principles that you've been waiting to hear. How did she do it? The first principle is know your why. If you haven't had the opportunity to watch this YouTube video by the comedian Michael Jr., it's funny, the comedian, he brings us some really profound knowledge, know your why. He has this 3.5-minute video that he asked an audience member to sing Amazing Grace. Now, be careful and calm down, because I'm not gonna ask anybody to sing Amazing Grace today. But then, after the person sings Amazing Grace, he asks them to sing Amazing Grace again. But before he asks, he sets the stage and asks them to pull from their why. The difference between the first time and the second time is so visual, it's so palpable. You can know that that person is pulling from the depths of their soul because they knew their why. Mrs. Tavasili knew her why. She knew that she was shaping the next generation. She knew that she was walking into communities, unleashing dreams of students, including mine. The first principle is know your why. The second principle is understand context beyond compliance. We put so many labels on children: at risk, low socioeconomic status, English language learner, even gifted and talented, and special education. The list goes on. But there's no way for an educator to know who that child is in their classroom unless they take time to understand who are their people, where is their village from, what do they like, what food do they enjoy, what music do they dance to. There's no way to make that human connection by just the labels. They don't tell you the full story. So that second principle, understand context beyond compliance, pushes us to really take time to have that human connection and understand who is that little human being in your classroom. And in Mrs. Tavasili's case, what she did was she walked in my neighborhood. She got to see the graffiti walls and the uncontained trash cans that I had to walk by every single day. And the way she looked beyond compliance is that she saw me and she would pour into me, and she knew that one day I would be here to my greatest potential. That's the second principle. The third principle is create meaningful interactions with your students. From the moment children come into our classroom throughout the full year, there's so many opportunities for you to have human connection. And it is important for you as an educator to acknowledge your student as they enter the classroom, to acknowledge their disposition, their countenance, how they're feeling today, what they're thinking about, if they're ready to learn, and high-five them, or if they're not having a great day, pour into them and encourage them. Because again, we don't get to pick the circumstances that we are born into. I'm reminded about a time when I was actually a 4th grade teacher, and I made the silly mistake of saying, let me go a little lighter with my hair. Y'all, don't judge me. Go onto Facebook, check the video. I went blonde by accident. So I come to school only to realize that it was definitely a mistake. And as I walk in, my students start laughing at me. They start hollering, Mrs. Hannah Montana. And It's true story, so don't call me Miss Hannah Montana, because now I'm not blonde. But what happened in that moment was that I went from this just teacher of teaching curriculum to this human being creating this human connection. And that silly mistake actually opened up the door for us to have beautiful and incredible relationships. And each time that I went to class, we were able to talk about not only Miss Hannah Montana, but the learning and the curriculum that I was there to teach. Create high quality interactions with your students. That's principle 3. Principle 4, we must create high quality learning environments for our students. We need to engage their minds, activate the classroom space, and the way we go about doing that is ensuring that they feel encouraged and excited and activated to be their absolute best self. And this principle is actually the craft of an educator. It is what you are called to do, to teach children in a high quality setting. This principle, I liken it to an artist that has a blank canvas. Every day that you walk into a classroom, you have the opportunity as an educator to take a blank canvas and pour into the lives of children using your talent, using your intellect, using your experience and your training to really help pour into their mind and help them expand their thinking. High quality learning environments require for teachers to tap into their heart and into their mind to shape the classroom experience. I am reminded of a time that I was in 5th grade and our teacher created this wonderful experience for us to create a board game. And I'll never forget that because as I walked in, there was a lot of emotion and a lot of excitement. And our teacher intentionally created that space for us to have a just joyous learning environment. What I know about our educators is that they're very talented. They work late, they work hard, and they have so much knowledge to share with our students, and the way they go about designing the spaces of learning is really important. And so that 4th principle is create high quality learning environments. The 5th and final principle is no secret. It is we must partner with the people who love children, partner with families, partner with communities, partner with educators so that children can thrive. And sometimes I think we get caught up in thinking as educators that we have to do this work alone, but it's all of our responsibility. It takes a village to raise a child. As a matter of fact, it wasn't until I went to grad school that I realized that there's a whole field of family and community engagement that demonstrates 50 years of research that when families, educators, and communities partner, children will thrive. Actually, 2 pieces of research that I really love is Urie Bronfenbrenner's ecological system theory. One, because it is such a fun word to say, and as an English language learner, I'm very proud. But the second reason is because it really creates a model where it shows us that the people that are closest to children our families, our educators, and other community members, and it shows us that they have to work together in partnership so that they can thrive. The second framework is created by my friend and dear mentor and once professor, Dr. Karen Mapp. It's the dual capacity framework for educator-family partnerships. And while relationships are not linear, this framework gives us an opportunity to see how there's currently a gap between the relationships that happen between educators and families, and it uplifts the conditions that allow us to go from not partnership to full partnership. It's brilliant work, and I really appreciate how that framework gives us the roadmap to go to partnership. These are the 5 principles that I know to be true that will unlock the hopes and dreams of children. In our country today, there are over 55 million children in our schools. And I would be remiss to say to you and to teachers that if you do not take care of yourself, then you will not be able to take care of students. And so take care of yourself, put your oxygen mask on. To end, I just want to say, education is all about relationships. And I would not have the opportunity to stand here today on this stage had Mrs. Tavasili not poured into me as the powerful educator that she is. That even after 30 years, 30, let me say it in Spanish too, 30 años, she is here in the audience today as as a beaming reminder that all children can, in fact, do everything that they put their mind to, and that we as educators must never give up, and that we need to leverage relationships to redefine education. Thank you.